Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel T-Spot. In this video, Bar is a film directed by Greta Gerwig and written by her and Noah Baumbach. It centers on the eponymous doll as she leaves Barbieland and enters the real world. The battle-produced Barbie movie combines humor, fantasy, and real-world issues while also taking Barbie and Ken on individualized experiences that forever alter them. In order to retake Barbieland, Bobby, Gloria, and her daughter, Sasha, team up with the brainwashed Barbies in the last scene of Bobby. After the Kens turned against one another, the Barbies decided not to amend the Constitution, which resulted in the demise of Kendom and the restoration of Barbieland with a few modifications, such as the placement of certain Kens in lesser courts. Bobby advises Ryan Gosling's Ken, who is experiencing an existential crisis, that he must discover who he is without her. Bobby herself is unclear of what would happen next or how her narrative will pan out. Barbie resolves to become human since she no longer believes she can remain the stereotypical Bobby, and with the advice of her creator, Ruth Handler. Bobby makes the decision to become human, even if it means dying. At the movie's conclusion, Bobby takes a significant action. Bobby decides to permanently change into a human, leaving Barbieland where she is beautiful and every day is wonderful behind. Bobby, the stereotype, is fully aware of the consequences of her choice. Existing as a human implies that she will ultimately pass away. Bobby, however, is willing to take a chance since she prefers to have a meaningful existence than to exist only as a concept for all eternity. Barbie's confidence in herself and her ideal existence was shaken by living in the real world. She was experiencing a wide range of feelings, navigating existential crises, and remembering both joyful and terrible things, which left her wanting more knowledge and experiences than what Barbieland could provide. What Bobby encountered in the real world astounded her. Although it was far from ideal, Barbie could still make her own efforts to improve it. Just as she had done with Barbieland, Bobby yearned to thoughtfully consider what it meant to be flawed and to wrestle with the good and negative aspects of being human. She believed that she might accomplish more good in the real world and maybe choose her own fate. Why Ken finally rejects the patriarchy during his villainous period. Barbie's adversary, Ken, emerged. He discovered patriarchy in the outside world, accepted it, and brought it back to Barbieland. The failure of his ambitions for Kendom, however, made him realize that it was okay to feel frightened, confused, and upset. Like Bobby, Ken experienced an existential crisis, but he lacked the resources to deal with it. Only after hearing that he was free to simply be Ken without being bound to Bobby was he able to let go of the toxic effects of his actions. He had to put patriarchal beliefs behind him because they weren't helping him with his issues. Future of Barbieland. What's in store for the Kens and Barbies? Things were mostly back to normal for the dolls after the Barbies liberated Barbieland from the invasion known as Kendom. However, after going through identity crisis, the impacts of patriarchy, and the realization of the difficulties in the actual world, they had all gone through too much. Without Bobby, Ken is likely to reflect on who he is, which might pave the way for a more self-assured yet non-toxic Ken. The other Kens will follow suit, especially considering that they really just wanted to hang out at the beach with the Barbies rather than babble. The Barbies, on the other hand, started to be more accepting, even letting Weird Bobby join them rather than continuing to live in exclusion. Barbie and saw significant transformation when the Barbies let some of the Kens to participate in court with them, albeit in a more limited capacity. Importantly, at the film's conclusion, the Barbies and Kens have a much better understanding of one another. The adjustments made in the knowledge obtained through stereotypical Barbie's epiphanous may inspire other and have inhabitants of Barbieland to engage in self-reflection. Why Ruth Handler opted not to end Barbie's story. The Bobby doll was created by Ruth Handler, who named the well-known metal toy after her daughter, Barbara Handler. Ruth claims that she intentionally built Bobby to not have an ending at all, despite the fact that stereotypical Bobby no longer knows her conclusion. The Bobby doll is a timeless concept. Generations of girls have been inspired by Bobby as a symbol. She was created and then remade, reinvented, or somewhat changed to keep up with the times with significance that was bestowed onto her, whether by Mattel or by customers. Barbie is immortal. She will always be the epitome of perfection and an enduring icon, for better or worse. The real reason Mr. Mattel placed Bobby in a box, they attempt to hastily rebox Bobby whenever she approaches Mattel's board. Although the image is extremely accurate, the box itself serves as an illustration of Mr. Mattel and company's attempts to limit Barbie's potential and stifle her ambitions. They can regulate her behavior in the box. She can remain a flawless doll covered in plastic forever. The novelist Marcel Proust is also connected to the box. When Barbie enters the box, the scent of the container prompts her to comment on Proust in memory. Barbie is entering the present, yet the box itself is a symbol of something from the past, the basis for the termination of Alan, pregnant Midge, and growing up Skipper. There are several variations of Ken, but only one variation of Alan. Alan was pitched as Ken's friend and Midge's lover when he was first introduced in 1964. Alan was terminated in the mid-60 seconds, perhaps because there wasn't much interest in him. But he subsequently made appearances during significant events, first as Midge's husband and then as a father to their children. He was once again discontinued in the early 2000s because he was offered with the doll Pregnant Midge, which Walmart had to remove from its shelves after receiving complaints that it encouraged teen pregnancy. There was a new release of Pregnant Midge, but this time the baby was already born. However, the damage had already been done, and Midge and Alan were later dropped. A decade later, Midge made another appearance, this time without the kids or Alan, in the animated series, Barbie, Life in the Dream House. Meanwhile, growing up Skipper was dropped due to criticism. When Barbie's left arm was turned, the doll mimicked the transition of Skipper into adolescence by growing taller and gaining breasts. Growing up Skipper was eliminated from the Barbie range in 1977 as a result of it not being well received by many. The meaning behind Barbie's final scene: Barbie deals with gender politics, but at its core, it's about being prepared to dig within, explore one's identity outside of what is prescribed by society, and fight for change. Even if it's frightening, it's hardly surprising that both Barbie and Ken are struggling with their identities. Barbie and Ken are bewildered when confronted with a new reality and are no longer as readily able to identify themselves as they previously were, despite how the characters handle it differently. Having gained insight, they are also unable to return to the past. Instead, they must both put forth the effort necessary to advance as individuals. The conclusion of Barbie shows how patriarchy is bad for both men and women. In Kendom, where their actions were characterized as brainwashing, and they were deprived of their authority, voices, and autonomy, the Barbies felt the weight of it. Although the Kens were in positions of power and engaged in destructive behavior, Ken's existential crisis and emotional breakdown disproved patriarchal notions that men shouldn't express emotion or consider their identities. When he ought to have been practicing self-reflection, Ken was trying to dominate the Barbies and make their lives miserable. Barbie's loss of identity also illustrates that it's acceptable to be flawed and confused. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Thank you for watching. See you soon.